Hello everyone, I'm Alan, also known as McLaren 2009, and today I'm going back to playing Train Sim World 3. I'm specifically going back to the Sherman Hill route with Union Pacific in Wyoming, so that maybe I can actually finish it this time without getting distracted and blowing through the signal. So, fingers crossed. I saved my progress after I passed the last checkpoint, so I'm only 17 miles away from the final destination. But the last time I did this, I got distracted, started telling a story, and the bottom line is I was down to the last mile, and I overshot the stop by like at least 50 yards. And there's a slight problem with that. The red signal was literally right in front of where the stop objective is. So there's like no space there. So if you come in a little bit fast, you kind of mess it up in that regard. So let's bump this up a little bit because we're creeping up faster and faster towards the speed limit. And we're going downhill, so we kind of want to ease off a little bit. Now this is technically a little bit faster than the dynamic brake is supposed to be used for, but it's what we've got. And the dynamic brake should be functioning in all three of the leading locomotives and one of the very back locomotive. So you look over here at my map, go all the way to the back. We've got 3 locomotives up front and 1 at the back facing forward. I think we have 84 cars, almost 6,200 tons. It's a 1.5 miles long. And we're rocking a couple of SD70s, hoping for the best. Alright, let's knock the dynamic brake down to 6. Maybe, if it'll let me. And we can let the speed build up a little bit. But preferably not getting too crazy. Alright. And let's look at the map, or not the map. The overview. We're staying at this speed limit, and we're pretty much going downhill all the way back to the Laramie yard. And we got 15 miles to go. Now the goal is is that hopefully I won't be distracted when I get to the end of the rainbow. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to go back and do it again, and I really don't want to do that. Going 37 miles an hour. It should only take 30 minutes. But it's gonna take longer than that. I'm just calling it now. And there's a section up ahead where the speed limit arbitrarily drops, so that's kind of weird. But we're staying under 40, so we're doing good on speed in that regard. Alright, let's crank this up to 7. Because that seems to be helping keep the speed contained. Sure. Like, I mean, if I had my Twitch dashboard open, I could clip things and bookmark stuff, but I'm doing it all from Streamlabs. So, yeah. No idea. Alright. And we're going to continue beating this dead horse to a pulp, but I still do not have a conductor. But that's probably never going to change. I could probably do this entire route from start to finish and never once have a conductor. But what can you do? If I get it under 10 miles, I could probably save it again so I don't have as far to go back if I blow the signal again. It's kind of like back on the Horseshoe Curve route. I was doing the scenario, does wet coal burn? And basically what you have to do is you go up to the mine, you go up to the coal mine, and you're carrying a load of coal, specifically in the rain, going downhill. And that was how I found out that you don't use the dynamic brake in the rain. Because as soon as I put the dynamic brake above notch 4, it instantly derailed the train. I don't know if that's like a thing that really happens, but I guess it kind of makes sense. Like with my experience with trucks, if you use the Jake brake too much in the rain, it can cause you to lose control and go into a slide. So I guess it would only make sense if using the dynamic brake, which only affects the traction motors of the locomotives, I could see that causing problems, I guess. I honestly have no idea. But, as I've said time and time again, I am not a train engineer. There's a very slim chance that I could become one day, but we're not there yet. Oh boy, what just happened? Alright, something about that is unsettling. We're just gonna save. So, bottom line is, with that other scenario and the seemingly random derailments when I used the dynamic brake, I started saving every couple of miles because it's like a 30-mile delivery or something like that, and you're going like 15 miles an hour the whole time. So having to restart it because, as you may have guessed, you're not allowed to derail the train in Train Sim World. Or in real life, for that matter. Well, because of that, after the second time of having to restart the scenario from square one, I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna save right here. And then we're gonna descend this hill using just the automatic brake. I'm not even gonna try using the dynamic. And I successfully completed the scenario that way. Well, apparently, so far, alternating between notch 7 and notch 6 on the dynamic is keeping me in a pretty reasonable speed zone. But because my frame rate just kind of like died, and then I was like, oh, there's a slim chance I'm gonna crash and lose my stream. So let's just save to play it safe. Alright, just 11 miles to go. I was thinking about saving once I broke 10 miles. But then stuff like this started happening, and then I was like, you know, I should probably save now, just to be covered in case something goes horribly wrong. Which, let's be honest, that is a very real possibility. Let's take a look at the overview. Nope, speed limit's still staying the same. And we're still going downhill. So the hope is that I'm going to get to the end of this and actually stop this time. Alright, let's save again, just to be safe. So this is a prime example of how or why you need to be familiar with the area that you're working in. because I don't know anything about this terrain. I just know that it's called Sherman Hill. You look at the map here. Never mind, the map doesn't help. You look at this map, you know that the actual thing that's designated as Sherman Hill, the summit, is like right around here-ish. And for the most part, it's uphill here, downhill here. And it's all between Cheyenne and Laramie. I've never been up there. Don't know anything about the area. Although I still like to think there's more than just, like, old school, like, Microsoft Flight Simulator, like 95 grass textures as far as the eye can see. Which it's kind of funny that I'm always kind of like complaining about the graphics on this route, because one of the big things about one of the recent updates was that they specifically overhauled the lighting and weather and just the aesthetics in general for this route to make it more in line with the standard of Train Sim World 3. And then I get in the game and I'm just like, I can physically see where they stopped adding bushes and textures. And it's just like, I'm kind of let down. But it's whatever. Alright. Less than 9 miles to go. Although I think by complaining this much, I've pretty much guaranteed that even if I do make progress and start a career as a streamer, I can almost guarantee I will never be sponsored by Dovetail Games. Even if I, like, exclusively start playing Train Sim World, I don't think they will ever sponsor me. But that's not the end of the world. To be fair, I don't think anybody's going to sponsor me, like, ever. I tend to do a lot of complaining while I'm just sitting here between doing things in the game. And that's probably not the best way to make friends with companies marketing their products. But we're doing good time-wise. It's been 20 minutes, and we're more than halfway there. Alright, so it's going to be closer to like 40 minutes, maybe worse. But with any luck, I'll have more action points this time around. Yeah, speed limit staying the same. And we're keeping going downhill. Hello. Yeah, I'm currently working on doing a job that I messed up in the past because I got distracted and I was like telling a story or something, and I got to literally the last mile of this job delivering cars to Laramie, Wyoming, and I got distracted, came into the final yard there in Laramie, and I blew the stop objective by like 100 yards and hit the red signal, so I automatically failed the scenario. And then I was just like, you know what, I'm going to take a break from this for a little while. And a little while became like 4 days, and I'm finally getting back to being like, you know what, maybe I should finish this damn scenario. And more or less, I've just been ranting about how I'm slightly disappointed with this DLC. Like, I thought that since they said that they were updating the Sherman Hill route to be more in line with Train Sim World 3, and then I look at this and it's just like, you know what, if y'all upgraded it, I don't think I wanted to see it before. Oh yeah, I've pretty much been alternating between streaming this and Derail Valley. This has the more, I guess you'd say, realism. Let's just save again so I don't have to go all the way back to 20 miles away. If I do blow the signal again. And then Derail Valley is just really cool because I pretty much exclusively play it in VR. So you get to actually work with the controls, and it seems like you're standing in what looks like a locomotive. Oh, well. At least I was able to help with something. Not sure what I did, but... Oh, you just got in the game. Yeah, I have approximately 125 hours in it, pretty much all in VR. And basically I just got back into playing. I started with Train Sim World 2, and then I also got back into Derail Valley at the same time. Basically, towards the end of last year, I started thinking that I want to go to work for the railroad in real life. So I started playing more things that simulate working for the railroad. Although normally with this game, I generally wanted to focus on the Horseshoe Curve, which is the Norfolk Southern DLC, because the place that I interviewed with and started the process of working is actually on the horseshoe curve. So that was like the first DLC I absolutely had to get for the game, because it's like, this is the area that I'm really going to start working, so why don't get a feel for what the terrain looks like? Even if it's not perfect or like a one-for-one simulation, it's still something. And then recently, when they were putting out all of the updates about the revisions to the Northeast Corridor, they specifically mentioned that they overhauled the Sherman Hill DLC, and I was just like, alright, fine, I'll check it out and see how it is. And then I was kind of let down, but I'm gonna keep rolling with it. Alright, 4 miles to go. Basically, I decided randomly I was going to start streaming again, and I just picked Derail Valley because I set up my Twitch channel to stream it back in 2019, but I never actually got around to it. I got like distracted with something else in life, so I just never did it. And then I figured, since I went through all the steps to actually do it, let's actually give it a shot. Then I found out it's a little bit more complicated to stream in VR. But, good news, Steam has some tools that can help with that. Alright, thing's beeping at me and I still don't know what the thing means. Like, this is some kind of in-cab signaling device, but no idea. Yeah, I got this thing that I've started using every time I stream Derail Valley. It's called the OVR Toolkit. Basically, as long as I have my chat box opened as a window on my desktop, I can select it, and then I have this little thing that I flip over on I turn my wrist over like a watch, and I can just touch the little touch screen thing, and it makes the chat window appear. It helps, but to be perfectly honest, I don't have that many viewers. I'm getting more, but we're sticking with single digits for now. And then I found out that the thing that I was using, I've got this other program called Action. It's perfect for recording videos, but apparently it's really demanding when I try streaming with it. So then I found out about Streamlabs and how I can just combine it with my Twitch channel. Yeah, I don't use Twitter, like, ever. But I can combine it with my Twitch channel, and it's not demanding at all. Sure, the video is a slightly lower resolution, but it streams wonderfully. And it even has background music, so I'm not sitting here in silence while I'm just ranting about random things. Yeah, that's good to know. Alright, we are 2.4 miles away. I think it's a good idea that if it says we can't switch to dynamic unless the throttle's been idling for 10 seconds, I'm going to assume we can't switch to throttle until the dynamic brake has been off for 10 seconds. So let's set this to off, And let's start applying the automatic brake. Yeah, it's literally a 1/10 of a mile difference. So, like, not even a city block, and you can blow the signal. But the good news is, it's currently flat at the moment. And this is 84 cars, something like 6,200 tons. It's crazy. And I still keep going on and on about the fact that on this DLC I don't have a conductor. I absolutely should have a conductor sitting over there. They don't do a damn thing in the game, they just sit there and judge you. But they have like this 1,000-yard stare and they just stare at you while you're doing things wrong. But it's just weird that this specific route, I don't have one. Have this sinking suspicion that Union Pacific in real life would not let that fly. Or at least I hope they wouldn't. But I've been getting the impression from some of the comments on like other YouTube videos and stuff like that, where it doesn't seem like Dovetail Games really look too much into the American freight rails. It seems more of their focus is on the German stuff. But it just further solidifies what I was saying earlier about how if I actually make it as a streamer, I don't think I'm ever getting sponsored by Dovetail Games. I've complained entirely too much in my streams. I do actually have to kind of thank the fact that I got into playing Train Sim World, because in Derail Valley, I was using the independent brake for like everything, and Train Sim World, asterisk on that, Train Sim World showed me sort of that it's better to use the automatic brake, and that's what you're supposed to use for most things, but I was using it incorrectly, which is why it wasn't so effective in Derail Valley. And then one of the like update posts about the coming simulator update, somebody shared a screenshot from back before the overhauled update. I'm not sure where they got the idea, but they were implying that the old coupling box was making a comeback. Oh no, that's absolutely right. When you use the train brake, it will stop the train. It's just, the thing is, you when you use the train brake, it has to build pressure back up. We don't have gate... No, this thing right here. Right there, you have your equalizing reservoir and your brake pipe. When the pressure in your brake pipe goes down, it starts applying the brakes on all of your cars. The equalizing reservoir is the thing you're actually controlling with the lever. And then you reduce the pressure in the equalizing reservoir, and then it tries to balance it between the brake pipe and the equalizing reservoir. And basically there's like check valves in all of the cars that when this pressure drops, they start applying proportional brakes. But early on, when I had started playing in Derail Valley, I had completely forgotten that back then, before the overhauled update, I forgot we didn't even have an independent brake. The train brake was literally all we had. Well, I didn't want to use the train brake because once you apply the train brake, you can't just release it and go. You release it and then you have to build back up air pressure to release the brakes. So I was trying to use the independent brake as much as I could. And then these games taught me that I was actually using it the wrong way. You don't just like slam open the valve on the train brake. You just crack it open a little bit until you see your speed start to drop, then you release it completely so that you can build back up your air pressure. You'll still be slowing down while it's building back up pressure, but you don't... you only need to use it when you need it, and it just uniformly applies brakes along the entire length of the train. I still don't know a lot about trains. The tutorials kind of suck. Yeah, in the Marine Corps, I was in the air wing. Don't blow the signal. All right. Whew. Made it. Is 7,600 points good enough for gold? Maybe. Alright, this ought to be interesting. Now, I say this one's going to be interesting because, I don't know if you've noticed, I don't know if you have this route, but, these are the slow speed controls for how you load coal. Well, I press this button, it doesn't work. So, we don't have slow speed controls on the Sherman Hill. And it's kind of nitpicky, but I hate the fact that I have to make these brighter when I sign in. Operator controls. This is going to be the lead. Cut in. Back. Okay. Put that in. Full independent. Automatic release. Alright, now for the hard part. Bright. Dim. number board lights. Alright, how many locomotives do I have? 3 up front, none in the back. Okay, so luckily all I gotta do is just these ones. It probably doesn't do anything, but I've started actually using the MU switches to determine how the headlights are controlled. It doesn't work on all of the routes, but I guess it makes me feel better. Oh yeah. Alright. And trail cutout. But with the coming simulator update for Derail Valley, they're adding in a couple of these things. Alright, awesome. Oh yeah, I'm very excited about that. Yes. But the catch is, in order to have everything unlocked for sandbox mode, you have to complete the game on at least one of the default difficulties. And what they mean by complete the game is just unlock all the licenses. So more than likely what I'll do starting out is I will have my legacy save, which they've said you can continue your legacy save. Do a couple of jobs to get the licenses for the new locomotives, and then do a full restart and go back to square one. Alright, brakes are good. Let's apply throttle. Watch that the tractive effort, the tractive effort's going up, and kick off the independent. We're starting on flat ground, but at least that's one really great thing that I love about the tutorial for this game. They actually tell you how you start out on a hill. Yeah, that too. Okay, something beeped at me. Alright. Oh, and it's raining. Yeah, basically I've done everything. I've gone out of my way to be as safe and responsible as humanly possible when I play Derail Valley. It's almost as if I was playing this. Mostly because since I have all of the licenses, my copay is very, very high. So if I do blow something up, it's coming out of the 1.4 million I've currently got in the game. Alright, so we're going from Laramie to Cheyenne. Alright, cool. It's gonna start start going uphill once we get out of the yard. Oh yeah, it's rough starting out. My recommendation would be, until you have enough money to get like one of the hazmat licenses or something like that, try to see if you can stay around like the steel mill. There's not too much going in or out of there that is particularly sensitive or dangerous. Because, like, where I prefer to operate out of is I work out of the harbor, and I have these 2 DE6s that I just have hooked up for everything. Now that I found out you can actually fit both of them inside of the roundhouse at the harbor. I found out you can also fit them both in the repair shed at the steel mill. That was a fun day. But if you go to the harbor, you're going to find out there's a lot of stuff that requires like your hazmat licenses or your military licenses. Well, so you're one of the consistent viewers then. There are a couple. Basically, with my streaming, I kind of prefer to just start like telling stories and talking about random stuff that I've experienced. That's fair. I've noticed like a spike in my view time on my YouTube channel that I share all of my streams with. So I have this feeling that more viewers are coming. Because like all the analytical numbers and all that fun stuff, it's going up, so I'm doing something right. And of all the random things, it's streaming Derail Valley and Train Sim World. Apparently, like, obscure niche video games are, like, my thing. That's just what I'm gonna stream now. Like, it started back in 2019 when I was streaming a sub simulator called Wolfpack. And people were watching that because it's like this absurdly complicated game. There were like maybe 20 channels streaming it at one point because like nobody had like the patience to try and figure it out. Only like the most hardcore like war game simulator players ever. And I was terrible at it. It's not necessarily like a movie, but there are quite a few movies about World War II U-boats. I want to say specifically from the German perspective, you have Das Boot, Enemy Below, stuff like that. I was always more of the U571 speed. I really like that movie. There was something that kind of stuck with me from that movie that I remembered all the way up to when I became a Marine non-commissioned officer. When the XO, played by Matthew McConaughey, got assumed command of the German U-boat after the American sub got sunk, the enlisted guys are asking him, like, what are we supposed to do? And he looks at him and he's like, honestly, I have no idea what we're supposed to do. And then they go back into the wardroom, the officer's mess, with the chief of the boat, and he kind of like sets him straight, like, under no circumstances should you ever say that to the people under you. The captain always knows what to do, even if he doesn't. You have to look like you do. And that, like, stuck with me. I haven't watched that movie in a little while, actually. It's a really cool movie. And then as far as work experience goes, I'm a truck driver. Well, not at this present moment, but my experience is with driving trucks. So I've been considering doing another stream where I set up my wheel again and do American Truck Simulator. So, like, all of the random stuff that I know about hazmat, environmental protection, it either came from the Marine Corps or from driving trucks. BeamNG? Yes, I have. Actually, funny story about that. BeamNG Drive, I'm not kidding, that is how I learned how to drive a manual transmission car. I decided I was going to take a break from being a college student because I'm not active at the moment, but I was an academic senior and a biochemistry major. I was pre-med. I was trying to become a medical scientist. Well, I took a break from school because I decided I was going to learn how to drive trucks instead. Do that for a little while. Basically, I've only got the hard classes left, and you're only supposed to take those a couple at a time, not 17 credit hours a semester. That's how you burn yourself out and slowly drive yourself insane. Well, so I decided I was going to go back to school to learn how to drive trucks. Well, you might not know this, but most trucks aren't automatic. A lot of them are manuals. It's becoming less true now. You're starting to see more automatics. But the bottom line is, the school that I was going to learn how to drive trucks, they don't have automatics. They've only got 10-speed manuals. Well, one small problem. The only thing with a manual transmission that I know how to drive is a motorcycle. And motorcycle, not at all like a truck. 2 wheels, 18 wheels, slight difference. Naturally. So, I got a steering wheel, shifting lever, and I got I had BeamNG Drive for like a long time, but I always played it with keyboard and mouse. But when I was getting ready to learn how to drive trucks, I was like, I should probably know how to drive a stick shift. So I found out you can go into BeamNG Drive, you put the transmission settings on the hardest possible difficulty, make it as sensitive as possible. You get a steering wheel that actually has a clutch pedal, and you can get a rough idea of how to drive a stick shift. Well, then, when I had my wheel, my shifting lever, I got American Truck Simulator, because I was like, hey, I'm going to learn how to drive trucks, so why don't I play a video game where I learn how to drive trucks? And starting out, it was like really, really cool. I watched a couple of videos on how the real carriers train their drivers how to back up cargo to loading docks and stuff like that. Saw a couple of videos. One was even about the company that I later went to work for. And they were showing you how you're supposed to back up to a loading dock. And then I tried it in the game, and I was like, wow, this stuff actually works. So pretty much from that point on, I just kept doing like the hard difficulty, or the quote-unquote hard difficulty, when you get to the customer in the game and you just ask, all right, where do you want it? And they give you like the weirdest spot in the lot, but you get more experience if you do it successfully. And then I was just doing that, and I was just like constantly playing American Truck Simulator. Also mixed in Euro Truck Simulator 2 to just kind of like mix it up a little bit. But I was playing it like non-stop. Then I got into the second half of my course where we actually started driving on the road, getting ready for our license test. And I found out that while it simulates a lot of things really well, it does not simulate the transmission at all. Like, comparing American Truck Simulator to something like BeamNG Drive, the trucks in the game with the manual transmission, you're driving a car with 18 gears. Like, you don't have to worry about double clutching. You can just haphazardly shift into like whatever gear you want to go into, and that's not how it works at all. If you take the truck out of gear, it can only go back into the gear that it's that it's rotating at the right speed for. So you kind of have to feel around for it, and whichever one gives you a little bit of like vibrating resistance, that's the one that you tap in the clutch and try to like slip shift it into gear. Well, the game doesn't teach you that. You learn that when they actually teach you how to drive a truck. And then, like, that very first time when I opened up the game, and as you probably know, the game doesn't have a tutorial. It doesn't have anything close to a tutorial. You are on your own from start to finish. You've got nothing. So, I hadn't gotten my shifting lever yet, so I was using the paddle shifters on the back of my wheel. And my class hadn't even started yet. This was like 2 or 3 weeks before my start date. And I I barely can handle the 5 speeds in Beam and G Drive, and now you're putting me into a truck with the first day, like, starter mission, carry these clothes to LA or whatever. And it's just like, how many gears does this thing have? 12? Alright, okay, let's put it into first and see where we go. And then you're only going, like, 5 miles an hour and not a step above it. And then fast forward to when I'm actually driving a real truck on the road, and it's just like, yeah, you're in 6th gear before you break 15 miles an hour. And that's with a 10 speed. If you have an 18 speed, you're probably up to 10th gear, and you're not even at, like, 30 yet. It is crazy. Alright, we'll come back to that. Is it not raining anymore? No, it isn't. Let's sit back down. Oh, okay, that's what we're doing. Okay. And then, when I got the idea that I was going to work for the railroad, I got a lot more interested in Train Sim World 2. Hadn't gotten 3 yet. That was actually this year that I got this one. But my only experience with the railroad was back when I was a welder. I worked in a factory building train cars. So, like, a good example are these. I built these exact cars. Except the part of the country that I live in, they weren't Union Pacific coal gondolas, they were Norfolk Southern. But these exact cars, everything about this, I have worked on in real life. And it's actually something that I talk about in the Derail Valley streams. Every once in a while, I want to say like 2 or 3 streams back, I was just letting the time just tick on. Like, I've made peace with the fact that I'm never getting a time bonus ever again. Well, at least until Simulator comes out and I compulsively put it on realistic and I can get time bonuses again, because it expects you to be careful and slow. But just letting the time tick away, I walk underneath a random gondola car that's at the harbor, and I'm just like, alright, you see all these brackets here? I've welded those brackets on similar cars. I have done that. And I just go on, like, random tangents and tirades about building crazy things. And we're going uphill, maintain the speed limit. And to me, it's kind of like the coolest thing, because I look back at those And I'm just like, I've worked on thousands of these things, and we jokingly called them the big gray monsters. So yeah, my experience with the railroad isn't working directly for the railroad, but working for a company that supplies the railroad. And then when I decided that I was getting my CDL to drive trucks, I knew right off the bat that I was going to get a hazmat endorsement. Because back when I was in the Marine Corps, I was an environmental compliance coordinator, hazardous materials non-commissioned officer in charge, hazardous waste supervisor. Basically, I did everything that has to do with issuing and receiving hazardous chemicals and disposing of waste. So it's a surprise to literally no one that I'm going to get into environmental protection after I got out. So when I decided I was getting a CDL to drive trucks, I knew right off the bat that I was getting a hazmat endorsement. So, imagine my surprise when I find out that the railroad has a similar thing. It's not so much an endorsement on like the license that says you're a conductor or an engineer, but you have to be specifically trained by the company that you work for to handle hazmat. And only people that are actually trained and certified with hazardous materials can load, unload, or sometimes even couple the cars that have chemicals in them. So I was just like, can I get on that pipeline? Like, hazmat is kind of my thing. This is like what I do. On the map. Okay. Right about here, we're going to start going downhill the other way. So even though I've never set foot in Wyoming in my life, I'm slowly starting to learn this route. Which is what you're supposed to do. Because even after you become like a licensed conductor, like I'm trying to do, that's not enough. You have to be qualified to run a specific route, so you know what the terrain looks like, every speed zone, every siding, all of the rules and regulations that pertain directly to the route you are on. So you get out of school, and you go back to school before you can go out on your own, without somebody hovering over your shoulder and holding your hand. Yeah, it was nice talking to you as well. Hopefully you have a nice day. Yeah, it's one of those things that gets really annoying on the road. Am I turning the windshield wipers on? Am I turning them off? Like, what's going on? It's not heavy enough to keep them on, but it's not light enough to turn them off. So you just gotta hope for the best. Basically what I'm working on right now is I am hauling a train of coal from Laramie, Wyoming, going down to Cheyenne. It's 53 cars, 7,700 tons. Barely a half-mile long. To be completely honest with you, I'm not sure fun is the word I would use, but it is entertaining, I will say that much. Otherwise, I wouldn't keep coming back to it. But yeah, I don't think fun is the word I would use. I will say that I do think it's a fairly relaxing game for the most part. Oh yeah, I occasionally do the passenger routes. The only one that I've actually made any progress on is the Peninsula Corridor, the Caltrain one. That one's pretty cool, but it's more stressful to me because they're really strict about, like, the timetables. Like, okay, you have exactly 8 minutes to go 5 miles, and any second over that 8 minutes, you're going to start losing time, and it's just going to get worse and worse exponentially as you go down the track, and it's just frustrating. Like, nah, I'm just going to deal with these freight routes. I'll just take a coal train at like 10 miles an hour down a mountain. I don't have any, like, warnings saying I'm not going fast enough. This is just easier. Although, to be fair, this specific route, the Sherman Hill, I got it because when they were putting out all of the updates about how they were rebuilding the Northeast Corridor for Train Sim World 3, they specifically said that they were updating the appearance of the Sherman Hill DLC for Train Sim World 2 to make it more in line with the rest of Train Sim World 3, which that's something I can rant about another day. But when I actually got into it and started playing it, I looked around and saw that, like, it's like an empty Flight Simulator 95, like, texture palette off there in the distance. And I was like, I've never set foot in Wyoming in my life, but I like to think that there's more to the scenery than a couple of random bushes. And then I read through the thing where they were like, yeah, we upgraded the visuals and lighting and dynamic weather to make it more in line with Train Sim World 3. And I'm looking around like, if this is upgraded, I didn't want to see it before. And it sounds like very hateful and critical to say that, but I'm just slightly disappointed. Although I'm probably burning bridges, and if I actually make it as a streamer, I can almost guarantee I will never be sponsored by Dovetail Games. They will shoot me. Yeah, that's probably fair. But, yeah, I got this DLC. Oh. That's pretty handy. I got this one because it was another option for the freight routes, and I really like those. I'm not particularly fond of the passenger routes. There's not anything wrong with them. It's just not my thing. So I wanted more passenger, or not passenger, I wanted more freight routes. For the most part, I alternate between streaming this and Derail Valley. Oh yeah, that's a very, very good point. I first got Train Sim World 2, and I was working through the journey on the Sandpatch grade. I was doing one of the switching jobs, and I didn't realize that you could remote control the switches using the map with the 9 key. So I had this problem where I would start out the mission and I would be going, and then I would just be following the track as it's aligned when the scenario starts, and then I would repeatedly get into head-on collisions with another random train that's just passing through the yard. So somehow I was getting onto the main line and then slamming into another train, and then it's just like, how do I avoid the train? It doesn't stop, it just keeps going. Well, then I found out that you press the 9 key and you click on the switches and you go to the track that you want to go to. And then it's like, okay, that makes sense. I'm just an idiot. Now, every once in a while, you gotta double check the map. And pretty much everything that's on, like, the main line is automatically switched for you. But the yards, when you're doing the switching jobs there, you have to manually set those. The really weird one was the 3-position switch in the Cumberland yard on the Sandpatch grade. I didn't know it was a 3-position switch. I thought I just clicked on it and just, like, went, and then I went down the wrong track. You'll live and learn. It actually makes me really glad that with Train Sim World 3, I only have one route that's actually Train Sim World 3, and that's the Cajon Pass with BNSF in Southern California. But I absolutely love the tutorial world. Like, I love how they actually teach you how to play the game. Whereas 2, it has the tutorials, but maybe I'm cynical, but the tutorials don't help much. At least they didn't help me much. Like, I particularly hate how in the multiple unit, like long train tutorials, they tell you to it's like turn on the locomotive and then walk back to the 4th locomotive because it has a gauge for the end of train device, and spoiler, the ES44AC, it has the end of train brake pressure on the smart display. But they tell you to walk back through all of the locomotives to the GP38 they slapped onto the back and look at the brake pressure, and they tell you as you're walking through the multiple locomotives that, oh, the other ones are already set up, so you don't have to touch them. Well, I made the switch from Train Sim World 2 to 3, and I found out that they are not set up properly. You actually have to go through and manually set them up. I could not figure out why, for the life of me, the train will not move. I throttle up, I release the brakes, but I don't move. So I throttle up even more, I overheat the traction motors and kill the locomotive. So I got so frustrated with it that I actually Googled and read the actual GE owner's manual for the real-life locomotive. And only then did I figure out what you need to do with these switches in order to make the locomotive move. So now I know that for leading locomotives, turn on everything. For trailing locomotives, set the engine to run, leave the generator field off, the fuel pump and control off, and also turn off the dynamic brake. Then go back and play with the headlight controls for multiple units. Now you do that in all of them, it works fine. Have not had any problems since then. But unfortunately, it did also clue me into a couple of things. You look down here at the smart display, and when you learn how the real ones are supposed to work, you notice that this screen has not even half of the information that it would really have. And you start to notice that some stuff's missing or not represented in the game. It's not necessarily a problem. It doesn't have to be like a perfect one-for-one replica, but it's kind of weird when you notice there are a few more systems and pieces of information that would be pretty helpful if you were actually learning how to operate a locomotive. But I am not, as of right now, a train engineer. I'm trying to become a conductor, but the process is kind of slow and painful. Or I should say, getting hired is slow and painful. The process itself isn't all that bad. I just gotta go away for a couple of weeks to go to school. I'm trying to make the switch from being a truck driver to being a train conductor. Originally, when I thought I wanted to work for the railroad, I was like, can I be an engineer? Can I drive the train? Well, when I did my first job interview, I found out, yes, you absolutely can. In fact, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. If you get enough seniority with the company and your number gets called, congratulations, you're going to engine school. You're going to be an engineer instead. And nobody stays a conductor forever. But since I decided that I wanted to make that career move, I've been playing this and Derail Valley almost religiously. I started streaming Derail Valley more than I streamed this, just for the simple reason that despite the fact that it's not a popular category on Twitch, it started getting views. So I was like, alright, it's what the people want. It's what we're gonna do. But I do actually really like both games. As much as I complain about this one, there actually are a lot of things that I think are really awesome about it. On the AM7, I actually don't know too much about it. Which route is that on? The bullet train on the... Oh, okay. If it's not in Train Sim World, I probably won't know what it is, if I'm being completely honest. Because what I know about real equipment came from this game. Oh, it was an Amtrak locomotive. Those are generally pretty cool. I like them because their stuff is, like, fast. I actually tried working for Amtrak. Had an interview and everything, but I thought the interview went great. But I guess they had more qualified applicants that were interviewed after me. But to be fair, I was more excited about the switching jobs in the yard than I was about being a passenger conductor, and maybe I inadvertently showed that through something in my demeanor in the interview. Thought I knocked it out of the park, though. I just loved the fact that when I was going through the interview process with them, I didn't think we had high-speed trains here in the US. And then you find out about the Acela line up there in Boston, or up there in Massachusetts, and you're like, oh no, we absolutely do have high-speed trains. We can go 125 in some places. And it's just like, I had no idea we could do that on this side of the world. So I just thought that was, awesome. Yeah. That one specifically. I might have pronounced it wrong. Yeah, actually it is. It just came out. If it wasn't this, I think it was this week. Or maybe it was last week. The time kind of bleeds together. Although the posts for that update are what caused me to get this. Which is a weird roundabout way of getting the wrong thing, but I like the freight jobs, so that's my thing. Okay, let's look at this. Okay. Things are about to start getting a little bit weird. Stop at location. Alright, will the map actually do anything this time? Okay, good. I actually have a map this time. Okay, so that's what's going on. We're getting there. And then we're stopping on, like, a different track. Funny you should ask that. Not only do I know what Stormworks is, I've put more time into it than I should be proud of. I only have approximately 1,400 hours, so I'm not quite at the level of what they would call the master builders, but I've made some Stormworks creations. I might have to refer you to my YouTube channel. You'll see some of the things I've made. I went through a brief period where I was obsessively making everything about trains. So I made an improper diesel locomotive. Actually, I'm up to 6 diesel locomotives in Stormworks now. Yeah, I've put a lot of time into that game. Taking like 7,000 tons. I definitely need to apply some brakes. I basically went through tangents where I would build things that I have real experience with. So I've built a lot of trucks. I got back into train simulators, so I built a lot of trains. In the past, I've built a lot of planes, helicopters, a couple of ships, but they're always a pain to make because they always take so long to build. But the real things that shine for me are the radio equipment based on stuff I actually worked on in real life. Like my official job title, I was a communication, navigation, cryptographic systems, and deceptive electronic countermeasure technician. So basically, everything that you use a radio or electromagnetic radiation to communicate or navigate, those are the things that I fixed. So naturally, I made them in-game. the ones that I'm most proud of are when I was watching the movie U571, and I just randomly started wondering, how does an Enigma machine work? And then I got like a crash course in cryptography, and I made a data encryption system in Stormworks. So you can give a 6-digit number on 10 composite frequencies and using 10 composite channels for a set frequency, and you can convert a 6-digit number with a substitution cipher, and you can send data that would be jumbled and useless to anybody without the key to decode it. It was the craziest and most unnecessary thing I have ever made, but it's like the coolest thing ever. There is no reason to have communication security in Stormworks, but damn it, I made it. Yeah, I've put way too much time in that game. And then my actual vehicles, while they're not the prettiest things, they all do their job, and they do it very, very well. Like, it's probably, like, arrogant to say it, but at some point, some guy commented on one of my trailers that I made for my tractors, and they asked if I could upgrade it to be in line with the standard that some other people developed, and they were like, can you make it in line with that? And then I went back into the standard that the guy was referring to, and then I was just like, to be honest, I like my way better. Their system doesn't differentiate between tractor brakes and trailer brakes. So I'm going to keep using mine. It's closer to the trucks I've driven in real life. Oh yeah, I have like 100 workshop items or something like that. Not sure why, but I have like followers. I'm trying branding, so literally everything is the same username. Twitch, YouTube, Steam, Discord. I'm doing the same thing all across the board. Brand recognition. Even if you start out small, you gotta start somewhere. Always had like the forward thinking of what if I start streaming and making videos like for a living, but in the back of my mind I always kind of have to like keep it grounded, like, nah, that'll never happen. I don't have any links to Steam from Twitch, it's only from YouTube. Weird. Do you guys post a lot of things to the workshop? miles to the stop. But then there's another stop after it. Alright, this is gonna be weird. Yes, it is. If I go up to notch 8, is it even gonna matter? Actually, yes. We're speeding up. Oh, we're coming up to the summit. We're about to start going downhill. And things are going to get wild really fast. Basically, I was talking earlier about streaming versus making videos, and how I prefer to stream things like this and Derail Valley, because when you make the videos, they're hours long, and that's like, it takes about 3 times as long to edit as it does to record. So I'd be spending forever just making videos. So I prefer that, since Derail Valley and Train Sim World, it's always several hours worth of video, it's better to stream those and just keep the videos to shorter things, like 30-minute videos, like, say, when I post something cool in Stormworks and I want to make a video explaining some weird convoluted system that I built. So going through the trouble of editing and getting a video ready to upload takes a lot of time, whereas with the stream I just open up the game and just go. And then when the stream's done, export to YouTube, give it a thumbnail, and we're golden. And it's just much easier that way. Specifically for the really long stuff like the streams have been. Is there... Yeah, I guess there is a crossing, sort of. One like this, well, considering it's 30 miles and I'm going 34 miles an hour, this could take an hour, maybe 2, but since I've already been streaming for going on 2 hours, I probably won't finish this one. I'll probably find like a comfortable stopping point and just call it there, and then just pick it up the next time that I stream Train Sim World. Which, since I haven't blown through a signal on this playthrough, it probably won't be as long of a delay before I pick it up and continue on. I had like a brief hiatus from the game because the last scenario that I just finished earlier in the stream, I messed it up and had to repeat it because I blew through the signal at the very end. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to take a step back and take a break from Train Sim World for a little while. So then I went a little bit heavier and more consistent uploading or streaming Derail Valley because I hadn't quite kicked myself hard enough to go back and finish this or the previous scenario. But since I finished the previous one in like 45 minutes, I actually have not played X-Plane. It's been on my wish list for like a long time, but I've never actually played it. I used to play the Microsoft Flight Simulator back when it was FSX. I still have the disc somewhere, but I'm pretty sure my like mod folder is why that laptop stopped working. I love simulator games in general because they allow you to play something, or it allows you to see what it's like to do something you may not do in real life. Like, once upon a time, I wanted to be a pilot. Honestly, I've seen Top Gun a few too many times and I wanted to be a fighter pilot. But fast forward a couple of years and you need a bachelor's degree to be an officer. And in order to be a fighter pilot specifically, you need perfect vision, not corrected. So, I was never going to be a pilot. But I used to really like... Yes. I was in the Marine Corps for a little over 4 years. I was a corporal, a very low-level, non-commissioned officer. I was specifically an aviation electronics technician. Alright, we're going way slower, so let's release that real quick. It can be a pretty cool job. There's also a lot of, like, kind of stupid things that are going to be a little bit hard to get used to. But it's kind of the same for all of the branches. Oh, I love the Harrier. I was actually on MCIS Cherry Point. Believe me, I know all about the Harrier. When I started volunteering at the Air and Space Museum near the area that I live, one of the static displays we have in the museum is the XV6 Kestrel, which is the precursor to what became the Harrier. it's funny you should say that specifically. I was an eye-level technician, so I was at a logistics squadron. But when I deployed, I went to the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit. Specifically, the squadron I deployed with was VMA 542. I still have my shoulder patch when they told us to hide our squadron patch because people were stealing them on the ship. Well, it's been a little while. It's like I've been out for 5 years now? No, I've been out for 4 years now. And they were still flying the Harriers when I left Cherry Point. I would imagine they want to upgrade to the F-35, but they still had the Harriers when I was there. For some odd reason, I thought it was the C variation that we were getting in the Marine Corps. Maybe I'm getting it confused with something else. The plane that I really liked was actually the EA-6B Prowler. The last Q squadrons were decommissioned shortly after I got out. That was always my favorite plane. Yeah, the Intruder is awesome. And that was originally my favorite. But then I learned a little bit more about what the Prowler does, and I was like, no, that's awesome. So when I got one of the nice morale patches in OD green, it says it has the top-down silhouette of the EA-6B. Yes, it's a four-seater. Has a top-down view of the EA-6B, and then at the top it says Electronic Attack USMC Prowler. And it was really awesome because they are unbelievably slow, loud, and damn near bulletproof. But you can pretty much guarantee that when it is flying overhead, if you are not one of our allies, your radio will never work again. And I always loved when I was giving tours at the Air and Space Museum, or when I was talking to guests at the museum. I would always talk about what the Intruder is, what the Prowler is, what they're used for, and it's just one of the coolest things about being a volunteer there. And it was also cool because I was the only one enlisted. Everybody else that was a volunteer, they were all officers, and pretty much every one of them was a pilot. I was the only enlisted, and I was the only Marine. So while my counterparts could talk your ear off about the combat capabilities of the F-4 Phantom, I could tell you all about the Kestrel, the Intruder, the UH-1. Those fun things. Yeah, I've pretty much always liked planes. My parents were maintainers in the Navy, and then I joined the Marine Corps because I had a terrible Navy recruiter. Then the running joke is, well, your check still says Department of the Navy. But ask any Marine and they'll tell you that while that's true, we're the men's Department of the Navy. I actually had the unique pleasure of having 2 different MOSs when I was in the Marine Corps. After we found out I wasn't a very strong swimmer, I got reclassed into being an avionics technician. Then when one of the guys that was working in hazmat kept disappearing, I got voluntold that you're taking this hazmat class tomorrow so you can get certified to handle hazmat. And at the time I was just Lance Corporal nobody, so I was just like, aye, Sergeant, good to go. So I took the class. Then the following year, I voluntarily became an environmental coordinator. Then I deployed, did my avionics job on the ship. And then as soon as I got back, wasn't even in the shop an hour, Sergeant walks up to me and asks if, since I got promoted to corporal, how would you like to be the NCOIC of hazmat? And I was like, absolutely, let's go out there. And then I took a course on hazardous waste generation, took HazWhopper, not once but twice. Took a bloodborne pathogen course, but there's a funny story for that. And then the bottom line is... Oh, that actually is pretty cool. Yeah, the bottom line is I got my secondary MOS. Hazardous Materials Non-Commissioned Officer. Yeah, I think the only model kit I had, and I had one of the, like, I guess, like, starter ones that doesn't have a whole lot of pieces, so it's kind of hard to mess it up. I had an SR-71 Blackbird. As much as we like to make fun of the Air Force, they have some really cool stuff. And I actually really liked that when I was in Pensacola, in A school, where I became an avionics technician, they had one program that was always like really, really cool. It was like their low orbital maintenance program. And those are the people that if you make it through this school, you're probably going to a squadron that works with either U-2s, Blackbirds, B-2s. You have a secret squirrel job at that point. But to be honest, I had a secret squirrel job. As much as I complained about being an avionics technician, it actually was a pretty cool job. It teaches you a lot of interesting stuff. Like when you're taking organic chemistry at your university and you're annoying your lab partners because we're looking at the periodic table, and I'm sitting there like, yeah, you see these right here? Gallium and germanium, those are used for something called doping. It's how you make solid-state devices in electronics. And they're just like, why do you know that? I'm an electronics technician. Want to know how to make a transistor? Okay, I need to release the brakes. Even though this hill's pretty freaking steep, we're going like half the speed limit. Raining, so I don't want to risk using the dynamic brake, even though you're supposed to. But on the horseshoe curve, I found out in the does wet coal burn scenario that apparently if you use the dynamic brake above notch 4, it just automatically derails. I don't know if that's a bug or if the dynamic brake actually does that, but I'm not a train engineer, so I don't know. I just pretend to be one online. It's more convincing in VR because I can rant about the train cars I've actually worked on in real life. Although, that being said, the cars I've got on me right now, those are the things I build in real life. I've been a welder, an electronics technician, an environmental compliance coordinator, hazmat supervisor, chemistry student, truck driver, and now I'm trying to be a train conductor. My friends jokingly told me that by the time I retire, my resume is going to be a mile long and have 1,000 different jobs on it. I guess at this point I probably could just finish it. I'm just 15 miles away. There would be no point in stopping now. But let's save just in case I blow through another signal. That way I don't have to go far. Alright, let's increase that. Basically, I just have like the weirdest assortment of interests. Let's go with that. And then as a truck driver, I have a hazmat endorsement, so I can work with chemicals on the road. And when I did my interview for the railroad, I found out that there are regulations about hazmat on rails. So I can still do the same thing even if I go work on trains. So it's perfect. Granted, I'm trying to be a conductor, so I'd be the person that sits over there, and the engineer would be later in my career. When I did my interview, they said it could be as extreme as you finish training to be a conductor, and depending on the needs of the yard that you work out of, it could literally be the next day. They're like, you're going to engine school. Or it could be 5 or 6 years. But it's not a matter of if, it's a question of when. It's just, what does the company need? And depending on your seniority and whether or not your number's called. So 13 miles out. Making pretty good time, all things considered. But the thing is, that could take 30 minutes. And I already have one, 2-hour stream playing Derail Valley. So I've been pushing pretty hard. But I have started to notice that if you stream consistently and you share your stuff between both platforms, that's literally how you get discovered. That's how you actually get to be able to do this regularly. And you gotta start somewhere. And apparently my thing is just streaming specific niche games to a relatively small audience, because that's the content that people are watching. So I find this to be fairly relaxing. Alright, gotta hit the brakes again. I'm trying to rely heavier on the train brake because I'm a little bit hesitant about using the dynamic brake after my experience on a different route. And then between this route and the Cajon Pass route, there's a safety feature built in that if you apply the automatic brake while the dynamic brake is on, it turns off the dynamic brake, and the only way to use the dynamic brake again is to release the automatic brake completely and maybe bail off the independent. Otherwise, you're just kind of out of luck. To be fair, this is a lot of weight to slow down. See, even driving trucks through the mountains, nothing compares to what this is. Because since I don't have a weight permit, supposedly they're easy to get, but since I don't have an overweight permit, the only thing I could ever haul is 40 tons, so 80,000 pounds. That's it. Well, even on, like, the steepest hill I've had to go down was like 11% grade. 40 tons down 11%. You put the Jake brake in notch 3. And just controlled brake all the way down. Hard press, release, hard press, release. And you can get to the bottom of the hill without melting your brakes and without using the truck ramp. But that doesn't even remotely compare to trying to haul 7,700 tons down this little 1.5% grade. Which doesn't seem like much if you play something like Railroads Online, for example. Everybody will be like, yeah, just keep it under 2% grade, you should be fine. Until you figure out that, oh wait, 2% grade is hard. But I just recently, like, wiped my save in Railroads Online. I decided that I made my yards in, like, the dumbest way possible, so I was like, nah, I'm just gonna start from square one. But I haven't gotten around to doing it yet. Okay, let's release. Allow it to build up air pressure. Alright, if I put this... Alright, it won't come on until the brake cylinder is at 0 or close to 0. Let's save it before I try this. Okay, that's 6. That's 8. sideways real quick. Alright, I gotta keep a close eye on it, because this is gonna get crazy. This part is really crazy, because you look out here, and the track doesn't look banked or cambered, yet we are listing like crazy. It is absolutely wild. So yeah, it's like the weirdest thing. But, you look at the map, that's where they want me to stop. So that's going to be in conjunction with this signal. And then presumably we're going to bring this train either into the yard or onto like a staging track over here. Maybe that's what this is right there. It's hard to say. Alright. Alright, let's release that. Release that. And let's see if we have enough space, or see if there's a big enough gap that we can keep the dynamic brake holding our speed. Alright, 6.5 miles to go. And then it's anyone's guess how long it's going to take to get moving again after we stop. Shouldn't be that long because I've went through and set up all three of my locomotives. So we can absolutely move on any grade. It's just unfortunate that it's so steep going down. I say steep, but it's 1.5%. Not that crazy. But supposedly in the tutorials for Train Sim World 3, they tell you in the going in the downhill tutorial, they say that the dynamic brake is probably best between 10 and or 15 and 30 miles per hour. And then the actual GE manual for a different locomotive says that you want to use the dynamic brake between 10 and 32. If you go above that, you start losing effectiveness of the dynamic brakes. But apparently on the other routes you start losing effectiveness of the dynamic brake when the track starts getting wet. Or maybe it was just a bug that I derailed. Who knows? Let's keep saving our progress in case I accidentally blow through this signal when we get to the yard. Although I do think the game starts to simulate brake fading, because over time you start to feel the brakes lose pressure and they stop holding as much, so you have to increase it and increase it and increase it. And at least with trucks, when that happens, your brakes are fading. And by the time you notice it, it could potentially already be too late. You need to stop and let your brakes cool off. Because if you keep using them while they're starting to fade on you, and you can feel like you can feel it start lightening up when you press the pedal down, if you keep pushing, they're not going to fade anymore. They're going to fail entirely. And when that happens, your brake shoes become essentially liquid. And for all practical purposes, you no longer have brakes. And that is a very, very bad day. In a truck, it means you're going to use a runaway truck ramp. Even in the manual, when you go to get your CDL, it literally tells you in black and white that if you press down on the pedal and nothing happens, start looking outside of the vehicle for something to hit, because that is the only way you're stopping. So that's kind of like one of those things that it's like really, I guess the word would be sobering when you read it. Because then you're like, if that happens, there is a really good chance you may die. So that's one of the things that makes you stop and wonder, am I in the right field? But it's not all like gloom. Even though there is the possibility that that could happen, there are like so many things that you do that help prevent that from happening. Like when you're going through an area that has notoriously steep hills, you have like mandatory inspection points where you have to go out with a flashlight and check all of your brakes, check all of your tires. And you're supposed to sit there for like 30 minutes checking everything. And in theory, if you check everything and you're still good, and you know how to do controlled braking, you know how to use your engine brakes, you won't have any problems. It's 2 miles out. The problem with these routes what's the thing I'm going with here? this is a heavy train. It's going to be hard to stop. So just like with trucks and all that. Except with a truck, we have to go from 55 to 0. You have 400 feet. Whereas this, if I was going 55, my stopping distance is going to be miles, even if I blow the emergency valve. It's going to be a long time before we stop. But you want to be careful. I hope I don't set myself up for failure by doing that. But I'm coming to a stop, and I'm still 1.3 miles away, so I'm doing good in that regard. Knock off that. That'll allow the pressure to build back up. Alright, then I gotta knock off that. I'm gonna start speeding up. We're only down to 0.8% grade, but that's still pretty significant when you're talking about 7,700 tons. That is a lot of coal. But the thing is, I don't need to hit the throttle. Gravity will let me speed up. But even then, I gotta keep it kind of contained. Don't want to speed up too far. Alright, let's apply some more brakes. Always gotta keep an eye on that accelerometer, whether I'm speeding up or slowing down. I'm gradually slowing down, so we're making progress. Now the funny thing is, because the way that the system works, I applied 64% on the brakes, but I can't reduce that unless I back it off completely. Over 1,000 yards. So like 11 football fields. Yeah, it's still in there. I was curious if my background music was still playing. It got kind of quiet. Yeah, it's still in there. Making progress. Slowly but surely. Hoping as we approach the yard it's going to get even more shallow. Because right now we are not slowing down fast enough. .500 yards and closing to the stop point. Not even 100 yards past that is a signal that we cannot cross. So if we're not careful, I'll blow through the signal again and have to go back to my save. And I would really prefer to not have to do that. Just asking for problems. Nope, we are speeding up again. It's going to be the slowest, most painful approach to this stop signal ever, but I'd prefer not to risk blowing through it. Yeah, it's literally 84 yards between the stop objective marker and the red signal. So if I miss it by so much as a couple of car lengths, I'm going back and trying it again. Let's release that. And release that. Oh, it's even worse than that. It's 81 yards. Alright. Made that stop. Just enough space to spare. Alright. Let's release that. Throttle up. Oh, I literally played through the entire playlist. So we've got an automated switch getting me over to the yard. Those switches are aligned. That's aligned, that's aligned. That's aligned. That's aligned. No, you're going way too fast. Yeah, this is a crazy approach. Especially since the speed limit's going down to 15. And it's pretty much going to stay 15 until I get parked. Let's just finish strong. And then we're off of the main. But our problems aren't over. Still got 2 miles to go at a laughable speed. And on a 1% grade to add insult to injury. steeper. You would think it was like a hop yard or something, but it's just not. Alright, 1.6 miles. Yeah, it's like I've come all this way. I don't want to fail now. Let's start braking again. Alright, that seems to be a pretty good way to do it. And then I'll apply the independent. Maybe like 50%. Knock off the automatic, let the brake pipe build up pressure again. Actually, that seems to be working. We're not gaining speed insanely fast, and if it starts getting out of control, I can just apply the automatic brake. So we start braking with all of the cars in addition to the locomotives. But luckily in this section it's only 0.3% grade, so it's not too bad. So a little over 2,000 yards. Let's double check to see if it's still raining. It is. Alright, all we gotta do is just power through to the finish line. Let's cut that off real quick. regret that decision real quick. That's the lane we're stopping in. Yards. All right, you're on the right track. Even a mile. You would think this would be like mostly flat at this point. But I guess that is not the case. And it was only supposed to take 30 minutes, took like 50 minutes, and we're still not there. So that makes for 2 3-hour streams for today. Little over 1,000 yards to go. Tankers are pretty cool. Let's see. In theory, it would be all the way up until this car is in the siding here. Yeah, in this lane here. Far enough in that it's not obstructing this line going down the ladder. So in theory we shouldn't need to get all the way to there, but it's better to get as close to it as I can. stays going slightly downhill for the entire length of the yard. On the map, it looks like it's clear out of Cheyenne. So if I remember where that is, roughly, it should be on the southwest corner of the state, near Idaho, maybe? Oh no, Idaho would be above it. No, it'd be closer to Utah. No, I don't remember. I'm drawing a blank. I looked at a map recently. It's like the dumbest thing ever, because I definitely know all 50 states, and I can label them on a map. It's just I'm not picturing it in my head right now. Let's take a look at the map real quick. Oh, we are completely in the lane. But stopping right there would probably complete the objective, whereas stopping right here more than likely would not. And might as well finish strong. And we got coal cars next to us too. We need to increase this. And also add this. We'll find out soon enough if we can stop here. No, we can't. Alright, so no joy on that. Gotta speed up a little bit. Independent. Let's try to stop it right on the line. Oh, I mean, really, we need to get the objective marker pretty much in the cab with us. Okay, that was stressful. Alright. Well, this has taken a lot longer than it was supposed to, so that's as good of a time as any to stop for today. So, thank you all for watching, and have a nice day.